Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see some shining faces despite the sponsor parties last night, maybe a few tired eyes. But it's so great that you all are here this morning because I want to talk about how software delivery changes and asks more of us each and every year. 20 years ago, we got cloud computing that brought in infrastructure provisioning at a speed we had never seen before. 15 years ago, DevOps practices once again changed the game. 10 years ago, it is this community, cloud-native architectures, and Kubernetes that once again shifted things. And if you've been here all week, you know that today it's AI. AI is once again changing the game of what is required of our internal platforms to support our organizations with innovation. So what I want to do today is share with you the new playbook for how platform engineering can prepare you, your organizations, and your platforms for success with AI adoption. To get started, we have to start with why we even build platforms in the first place. That is always what we have to return to. And we build them to reduce the scope and complexity for those that build on top of the platforms, for the application teams that are trying to deliver business value to the end users of your organization. That always has to be our focus. But the thing is some people worry that by building things into the platform, we're removing autonomy and ownership from those that are delivering the applications. But that's not the case. What we're doing is we're giving them focus. We're giving them the ability to do the things that matter to your organization and not have to worry about the dependencies that they require. It's the same thing cloud providers gave us by removing the need to worry about power and physical security and cooling and allowed us to still have ownership over our infrastructure, but in the demands of our organization. Once we deliver these platforms or know what we need to deliver, we need to also measure their success. And in my experience, that means we're trying to balance how we can go faster, safer, and more efficiently, all at the same time, which is a super simple job, right? Despite the target always being balancing these three, the reality is that they're in tension against each other. And so what ends up happening is as we build these internal platforms, we end up on a pendulum swing, or as I like to look at it, playing whack-a-mole. We have a challenge in one area like safety, and we do something to make it better, but then we create a problem in speed or efficiency. And we just play this game over and over again. And we wind up doing our best, and each iteration does help, but it also is reactive to the pain of the past iteration, and it costs a lot to do the migrations to these new types of platforms. So what's happened is we've solidified into three general patterns that we're seeing most organizations use for platforms today, and they all are a reaction to this whack-a-mole game that has left pain in their wake, despite the best of intentions. So the first is the ticket queue. I'm going to spend very little time on this because I think we've all felt this and we've all know what the pain is. When you have to make a request to a ticketing system for something that you depend on, it's slow, it takes rework. And of course, this is meant to bring in safety, but it's at the cost of agility, and it ends up creating even some safety challenges. But it's still really prevalent today in platforms. The second, I like to call the Oprah. This is the infrastructure for everyone. You get started really quick, you get a Kubernetes cluster, you get a Kubernetes namespace, you can get going immediately. And it feels really good to get started because you can get going quickly. But with autonomy comes responsibility. And now every team in the organization is building from first principles up from the infrastructure. And they're having to maintain it over time. CVE patches, new versions of things, these all have to be managed across your organization. So we come to our third pattern, probably the most recent, probably the most popular, and because it's the most recent, just starting to feel the pain coming through today. Because in theory, the template pattern is perfect. We take the centralization of the first pattern with building in the business expectations, building in the safety controls, and putting them in templates. But we also take the efficiency and the quick-to-market aspect of the second pattern, and we just give those templates out to our teams to get started quickly. This should be the perfect solution. But it's not when we go back to our first principles about why we build platforms. We build platforms to reduce the complexity and scope for those that build on top. And instead, we're handing them new tools and new languages to build with. All of a sudden, software engineers need to learn about HCL to work with OpenTofu. They need to learn about YAML and templating to work with Helm. These are the tools of our internal teams. They are not the tools of software engineers, and yet we expose them in a leaky interface. That leaky interface also creates an ownership problem. And I like to call this one the puppy for Christmas. Because you get to hand out, yeah, it's good, right? So you get to hand out, you feel really good. You've given this puppy and you see joy on the face of the engineers around you. They're so excited because they have this really quick, fun, fluffy thing that they get to work with every day, and it's great. But we have a few new puppies in our organization, and it's been fun watching people try and train them. There's some chewed up shoes, there's some vet bills, there's some 4 a.m. potty training walks. I did a rescue, I don't know about that. But either way, we all know that having a dog is a lot of responsibility, and it's not just about Christmas Day. So as an organization, if you create a template that then goes into the wild and creates infrastructure across your organization, you're not just the owner of a single puppy on Christmas morning, you have a mega litter. These puppies are running rampant around your entire organization, and they're completely unsupervised. You need to track them down each time you want to introduce a new feature, each time you need to patch a CVE. So as a centralized engineer, as a platform engineer, you don't get to leverage and be high leverage as an engineer. You're a full-time puppy parent, but you don't even get the Insta photos, you don't get the snuggles. It's really not very nice. So what we need to do is we need to rethink what does it look like to build platforms. And thankfully, we've been building on top of platforms across the industry, so we can look at the principles that we enjoy as users and think about how to apply them to our internal organizations. So these 3 principles are really effective no matter what size organization you're at. We'll talk about how to apply them to your context, but these are showing to be useful for small and large organizations across all business domains. The first is making sure that you start with an API that provides self-service. Your users want to be met where they are, which means that you need to be able to codify your expectations across the organization, whether that be in agentic AI, whether that be in a Slack bot, whether that be in their IDE. Start with the API. The second is making sure that you're building something that is relevant to your business and that it can keep being relevant to your business, not just on day one when you create, but throughout the life cycle of the resources. Building in that compliance, building in that safety, building in those rules that you need to abide by. And the third is making sure that we actually treat this like a managed service. The people who understand your capabilities that you're delivering on your platform need to be the ones that can manage the upgrades, manage the updates. They are the ones that know about CVEs, know how to patch them, and you need to enable them to manage things as a fleet. That's what allows you to scale their skill set. These have become non-negotiable because we've learned to depend on them for the tools we depend on. And now it's a matter of bringing them into our organization in the way we build our internal tools. And that's even more important with that step change in improvement in software delivery with AI today. Dora comes back once again with concrete evidence that the organizations that have internal platforms that provide the right foundations are the ones that become the high performers. To get there and to deliver the value of AI, we have to deliver internal tools that support it. Now, I'm sure that at least some of you are shaking your heads and thinking I'm saying, we have to all build our own paths. Haven't we been there before with platforms as a service? But I am absolutely not suggesting that we walk up to Sisyphus, give a big high five, and go, let's grab that boulder and push it up the hill of our internal platform as a service. It's not about rebuilding what we can purchase that is available on the market. It's about making sure we spend our time building the things that are bespoke and important for our organization. So we can depend on platforms like these products and more to build on top of. Because an internal platform is bespoke to your business. It is always striving to fill the space between what you can buy from the market and what your teams demand to be effective. Said another way, an internal platform is your specialized internal economy of scale. It's what's unique to your business but common to your teams. And it will be changing over time to address that. This is when we bring in the strategies that allow us to apply the platform principles to our organizations. Buy everything you can. When it's not differentiating, use it from the market. But when you can build something to support multiple teams and create that economy of scale, do it. And realize that what becomes available for purchase and what your teams demand is continuously evolving, so is your platform to keep up. And the final piece of this is the tactics. How do we actually do this thing in our organizations? That's what we're going to talk about next by talking about our team structures. And that involves us being able to actually get that enterprise app store moment that was mentioned by Alexis Richardson in his 2021 keynote. Because today, we're still organized as a centralized team. We're taking on tickets to build more capabilities for our organizations, and that looks a lot like the centralized teams of 5, 10, even 20 years ago. And of course, that's going to start to build pain, because that centralized team or set of teams can't keep up with all of the requests for the platform. Rachel Wanacott put this brilliantly when she talked about the complexity of an organization being like energy. It can't be destroyed, it just gets reorganized. And of course, if we're reorganizing it into one centralized group, that's going to be difficult to maintain. Phones, before the App Store, were in the same position. Each manufacturer was creating their own software. They had to create their own maps, they had to create their own emails, their own messaging. So innovation was stifled because everyone was recreating the same thing, until the App Store came along. This started with Apple, it went to Android. It applied principles of platforms. The consumers could self-serve what they needed, and the producers could have ownership of those upgrade processes. They could create, market, and maintain those as a fleet across phones. But not only did it address the principles, it gave us a roadmap for the tactics to deliver this in our own organizations. It created a multiplayer marketplace that scaled innovation, where anyone could create something as long as they adhered to the rules of the marketplace. This made it so that you could build something that was bigger than any one manufacturer could create by themselves. And to reach the promise of platforms today and to help those platforms reach the promise of AI, we have to do that in our organizations. We have to introduce a second persona to the way we build platforms, not just those that consume, but those that produce. And the specialists within our organizations need to scale their impact, but the platform engineers are also way outnumbered in your organization. So to scale that impact, they need to introduce the ability to provide these capabilities as a service. They need to create an API that encodes the principles of self-service and business relevance and fleet management so that the experts within the organization can contribute as they need to. This will free up your platform engineering time to spend time on things like standards and support of those APIs and of those producers. But even more than that, it frees up your time to think about them as customers and to build the tools that they require. Because not all your specialists are software engineers. Many of them are in finance, they're in data, they're around the organization. And just like the App Store started with things like Swift and Xcode and software engineering tools, but has moved into low and no-code solutions, our platforms need to do the same. So that rounds out how we optimize platform engineering today. We have global principles that we need to apply to our organizations by addressing these strategies, and we can use these tactics to build the right platform for us, not building that rock to push up the hill. And thinking about what that right platform is, it might be quite small. If you're a newer organization, you can depend on a lot of the pieces of the puzzle that are out in the ecosystem already, and you don't have a lot of process built up, great. If you're a bigger organization, 10, 20, 50 years of experience of process, you may need a bit more in that platform. Just remember that what you're trying to do is build the right platform for your organization. And these tactics are useful in both cases, but absolutely imperative the more you need to scale. What's really exciting about being here at KubeCon Cloud Native Con is that this is the community that is uniquely positioned to support platform engineering. It starts with the technology of Kubernetes. We had the custom resource definition introduced, and all of a sudden we had a unique way or a standard way to submit things to Kubernetes. And we now have this amazing landscape of over 200 projects that support the ecosystem, and so many more that are outside the foundation. But it's also from a community point of view. We are a set of diverse people, technologies, and requirements, and yet we've been able to build a robust system and model for learning and governance and shared ownership that we can then apply into our organizations and build this forward. So what I encourage you to do is think about the CNCF not just for 1 week a year at KubeCon, but for 365 days of the year with what you can do with platform engineering. You can join the technical community group that's hit the ground running this summer with all sorts of initiatives and meetings every other week, as well as a booth today at the Project Pavilion, so go check it out. You can also check out the case studies and maybe even submit your own. And there's the Linux Foundation certifications that are continuing to come out, and you can join me as an associate platform engineer. So as we wrap up our final day of this amazing week, the big thing is how do we take these stories from presenters on stage and bring them to our own organizations? And the way we do that is through experimentation. Define, run, and measure those experiments, with the only success being that your organization is more effective and a happier development team. So maybe you might want to take some experiments home that help you enable a world where platform innovation isn't constrained to a single team, but is nurtured across the whole organization. If you want to talk more about platforms or anything else cloud native, you can join me on the CNCF Slack, LinkedIn, or I'll be all around the halls today, including at the platform engineering booth and the Syntasso booth. So I hope to speak to you about your stories. Thank you so much.